Just be the light. Step into your power. Own the stage. Spark the stage. Ooh, that one's mine. All of those things sound really good, right? But when you're the one standing on the stage with the spotlight on your face in front of an audience, all of the euphemisms and colorful language and thematic imagery, none of that is going to help you unless you know what to do with your hands and you know how to engage an audience and you know specific, tangible ways to make a connection and why connection is even important in the first place. Well, if that is you and you want some tangible tips on how to make an audience just be like putty in your hands because they are so connected with you, then, my friend, this episode is for you. Today, we have the utmost pleasure of speaking with Cami Guildner. Cami Guildner Coaching helps clients build businesses they love with more time prosperity and more wealth prosperity. Hello, time and money. That is definitely something that I am all about. She weaves soulful inspiration into mindful business strategies, and this soul plus strategy approach to business helps her clients succeed in business and worldly impact. You will definitely hear this come through her interview, where not only is she someone who helps you get in touch with yourself, but she is a speaker who's spoken on hundreds of stages and is not just telling you stuff that she's heard, telling you stuff that she's read, telling you something from a course she's took, but telling you something from her lived experience to help you know exactly and tangibly how to make better connections with your audience from the stage. All right, you ready? I'm ready. It was a really good conversation. All right, let's go.
Welcome to the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. If you're looking for actionable ways to overcome communication and differentiation challenges by sharing radically authentic stories, you are in the right place. Listen in and learn how to stand in the power of your unique narrative to transform your personal life, business, and workplace culture. And now, your host, award-winning international speaker, strategic storytelling consultant, and Japanese whiskey lover, Ruby Coral's mom, Alea Harris.
Cami, thank you so much for joining us here on the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here to talk about a subject I love to talk about.
And you talk about it so well. So it's not just your excitement, it's my excitement as well, because for this season, I really wanted to bring in people that didn't just like talk about it, they knew how to be about it, right? Like you are a speaker, you talk, you coach, you do all of the wonderful things around helping people show up in their power. So the audience really is in for a treat. And today we're stepping into just a little bit of your sweet sauce, but I think it's the core of your like sweet, secret, wonderful goodness.
Yeah.
Which is other people and how to treat them really well. How to understand your role as a speaker is not about you. It's about the people in the audience. Can you tell me, one, how you had that revelation and how that's impacted the way that you speak?
So when I started my business 15 years ago, the last thing I wanted to do was get on stages. I was just like, nope, not going to do it. I had a business coach say that's the fastest way to grow. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then about, I don't know, a few years later, I decided that I wanted to impact 1 million women around the world, helping them raise up their voice and their visibility. And I'm like, I am not going to do that one person at a time. I really need to get over myself and get on stages. And so I went through all sorts of different trainings and all the good things and started telling story. And that was a place where it really opened me up into telling story. And that was really fun. I loved the story part of it. And then when I started doing more speaking, really having talks that I was bringing to people, I think that the biggest thing, very early on, I was going out there and I had all this stuff up in my head. And I was like, no, wait a minute. This isn't about me. And somebody said this to me. This is not about you. This is about the people in the audience. And it's like touching each person. Like, if you can touch and impact one person at a time, you're really, you open it up. And it was like, it changed everything for me, because then it was a connection to the people one at a time that I was talking to in the audiences. And it's like, if I can create an impact for any one of these people, that's how I can make a difference. And as soon as I made that shift, it took me out of my head. It got me out of my head and started to get me into the connection that was happening with the audience.
I love that story. And I often say the same thing, but I want to dig a little bit deeper.
Sure.
Why is it important to connect? Because I'm going to give you a little bit more to work on, because that's a really high level random question, right? Because if you think about it, like when you're writing a blog post, for example, you're not really necessarily focusing on connecting. You're giving good information. You're making it tangible. You're getting all those lovely SEO keywords in there, right? And people sometimes view like, well, I'm on stage and I'm giving out the same type of information. And I'm always like, don't be the person that's like a blog post reader on the stage. The difference between the mediums is connection. But why is it important to connect when you're on the stage?
Well, and it's just you've seen people get onto a stage and they're projecting their message. And they might be a very talented speaker, and they can get onto the stage and they can say all the right words. They can have all the confidence, but they're not connecting with the audience. And I've seen this happen, and it doesn't land. People don't connect with that. They don't go, oh my gosh, they don't start to lean into that. It's like they're being served a platter of, okay, I'm just giving you this platter of information, versus come and let's enjoy this together. And there's a big difference between that. And I'll even say, even when I write a blog post, I'm actually thinking about that connection. So,
well, that's because you're a speaker. You can't. I mean, once you turn it on, you can't turn it off.
No, you're right.
Right?
You're right. Yeah.
So, but I see it in my mind exactly the two types of speakers you're talking about, the ones that connect and the ones that don't. But what tangible things can you give people that if they're just beginning their speaking career, or they said, whoa, I'm the kind of speaker that just serves it up on a platter, how can I make that transition? What can they do to move from the speaker that doesn't connect to the speaker that does connect?
Yeah. One of the best tricks really is to start with that eye contact, right? Where you're just truly looking somebody. You find someone in the audience and you have a sentence or two that you land, and you're connecting eye to eye with that person. And then you move to the next person and you have that, one-to-one conversation with that person. And so it starts to break down as you're just speaking to a crowd of people, but you're actually speaking to real people, and you can see their eyes, and you can feel their heart. So that's one way that you can do it. And then I think the other way is to really connect into yourself before you actually walk onto the stage. And that was something that I really had to learn to do. And I've been on hundreds of stages, and I still, before I walk onto the stage, I'll take that deep breath. I'll take my hand, I'll put that on my belly and just kind of breathe into that space and connect with myself, and then walk into the room. And that's a different type of a connection, because I've connected first with myself, and then I start to connect with others.
Well, that second part is like, that's my jam. Like, because I teach people how to be radically authentic speakers, right? So the only way to do that is to know yourself. I want to go back to your first point, though, because it actually flies in the face of what a lot of, we're going to be nice and call them speaking gurus, say. They're like, look over the tops of if you're nervous, look over the tops of their heads. You don't have
imagine
to
them naked.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to look them in their eyes. Just pretend, just speak out to the faceless crowd.
Yeah.
And that's how you'll be more confident. But I actually find your method to be more confident building. Can you expand on how making individual connections and treating audience members like people relates to being confident on stage?
Sure, because if you're just speaking to the tops of people's heads, there's no connection, right? You're not making connection with people there. And so the confidence comes from that inner, and what I often talk about is we can be confident in our words, right? We can have confidence and we can still be projecting. And so there's that element. But what the next part of it is when we really start to embody our message, where we let our words come from within us and we reach the people in the room from within us. So it becomes this connection that is really deep. And I think that's a big difference. And so the confidence, we can have confidence and still not make the connection. And I actually have a diagram where we're like, okay, you have all these limiting thoughts that you can start with, right? It's like, oh, am I whatever? Am I good enough? Am I going to mess up my words? You have all these limiting, all that junk that shows up.
Which, by the way, even people that have been on hundreds of stages, we still feel
totally.
all of those things. So
Yep.
Cammie's not talking just about you. Don't
No, totally not. I totally get those. And then the next place is we start to feel confident, but we can still have that projecting phase. And then the third phase is where we actually find we're embodying our message and that connection happens there. And that's where we can really become movement makers in our message, because we are just so connected into our words and what we stand for. And we own our message in such a different way, as we stand in our fire that way.
I love that. Owning your message, embodying your message, standing in your fire. But I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Cammie.
Sure. Tell me.
Only because I can, only because you're an actual professional, not someone who just talks about this on the weekends, right? I say things like that too. Sparking your spark, standing in your power. All of those things are really intangible, though. And it's when you get it, you're like, oh my God, I'm standing in my power, because you feel it. But before you get it, before you realize you're doing it, it's very hard to do any of those nebulous concepts. So if you were to tell someone who's like, okay, I'm going to go embody my message, what I do, write my talk all over my body, like, what does that mean? If you were going to give them, even if it's just the first step, how do they embody themselves, maybe embody their message, maybe to then get on stage to build that connection? What is something tangible?
So we have a course that we call Soul Speaks from the Stage. And this comes from a friend of mine, Paula Friedland, founded the body of works called Soul Speaks. And then I started bringing her into my clients because I believe in her work so much. It was work that I did for myself, and it really, really worked. And what I love about it is that, you know what, when we're thinking about what we're going to say, we get all up in our head. It's like, okay, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. And, you try to memorize things, and I'm not a good memorizer.
Horrible.
Yeah.
I'm horrible. I could never be an actress.
No.
The director would be like, stop changing the script.
Totally. And so what I learned through Soul Speaks is to let our words come through us. So we did a lot of practice, and my clients do a lot of practice of walking onto a stage without an agenda of what they're going to talk about. And when you start to do that, and you take that landing breath of, okay, a big breath of, okay, this is what wants to flow through here. You tune into your body and you listen, and then you let the words flow. That's how we teach it. And what I love about this is that it enables us to get comfortable on a stage and not worry I think one of my biggest fears early on was I was going to forget what I was going to say. And I don't have that fear anymore, because I'm like, all I have to do is pause and take a breath, and then, listen to what wants to come forth, and it will come forth. So that's how you really start to embody your message, is one aspect of it. And then I think the other aspect of it is really knowing what it is that you stand for, knowing if the whole world could hear one message from you, what is that? And you're getting people to just lean into, this is what I stand for. I want you to stop, think, and act and do something different, because this is something you haven't heard before. So you've landed in that kind of messaging. And once you've landed in that kind of messaging, it takes a lot of work to get there. But once you land there, what happens is that you know that to your very core that that's what you stand for, and so you're embodying your message. So it's a bit of both, right? It's like knowing your messaging so deep that you know this is it. I'm putting a stake in the ground on it, and then the other part of it is learning to get out of our heads and into letting our messages flow through us, because you know your stories, you know your messaging, and if you trust yourself enough there, you can really embody your messaging.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked the deeper question. And I mean, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. I hope people realize that they were just given a gift. Um, because a lot of people can't break that down. The way that I explain it is channeling. You are channeling the message as you step on stage. And when you do that, it gives that confidence because you realize that perfection is already going to happen because you're in a place where nothing besides perfection can happen. You're channeling from a perfect place that is exactly what that audience needs to hear in that exact moment, which might not be what you thought,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you're in the zone, right? And I so
You're in
agree
the
with
yes,
that.
you are in
So
you are
agree. It
in
may
the
not be
zone.
what you thought. It totally may not be what you thought.
And I also tell people that when you are channeling, that means that the work of public speaking, the majority of it happens before you ever step on the stage. Because you can't just never before took a deep breath in your life and get up on stage, take a deep breath and be like, well, what are we talking about, right? Like it goes back to what you're saying. You have to do the work to know your core message. You have to do the work of listening and opening. And for some people, the messages come differently. For me, I am very blessed because God knows I need a literal lifestyle here. I actually will hear the words. Some people
That's
just
awesome.
feel a feeling. Some people get pictures or colors or sounds but you have to figure out what that is, what that means for what's in front of you. And then you can get the next level when you're talking. As you're talking to, you continue to stay open. You need to be able to then shift as you're talking, right? Because being in silence, that's great. You can hear it. But as your words are falling out of your mouth, and then you're like, you feel that there's a shift to being able to navigate it around. That's why my slides barely have any words on it, because I don't know what we're going to talk about. I promise perfect title. That is all I promise you.
I love it. I love it. It's so good.
Before I like this 15-minute format is it's exciting, but it's also like I have so many other things I want to talk about. But I'm going to honor myself and my format and you and your time. But I am going to ask you, when it comes to connection, when it comes to audience, when it comes to soul, when it comes to channeling, when it comes to being the type of speaker that is of the highest good for the audience in front of their face, what final words of wisdom can you leave with us?
Be you. Just be you. I mean, it's like, don't try to be that speaker that's over there or that speaker that's over there. Just find your presence and walk in your truth, walk in your presence, and don't, if you're showing up authentically as people are going to feel that and they're going to connect with you.
Well, speaking of connecting with you, thank you for the segue. How would you like people to connect with you? Where can they find you?
They can find me on my website. It's CamiGuildner.com. And if you, on the upper right corner, there is a Get Updates button. And that's a good way to stay in touch with me. And also, I do monthly trainings, free trainings every month. So a good way to just jump into my calendar of trainings that I do every month.
Well, I mean, Cami, you're really just the gift that keeps giving because free is in everyone's budget.
Yeah, totally.
And if I can even, like, you can promise even a little bit of what you've given here, I mean, the value is huge. So thank you for sharing your magic with us today. It's been wonderful having you as a guest.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate you.
So, like, if you didn't believe me before that, like, you need to channel and meditate and get all into yourself and get real before you get on stage, hopefully hearing it from Cami made you believe me. Made you believe that it's not just me. It's not just this cookie curly haired lady, Alea, telling you to do these things. It is actual advice from somebody else, somebody who's also spoken on hundreds of stages, someone who coaches people to do the same types of things. Sometimes it just takes hearing it from someone else, but I hope that now it has sunken in with you and you're going to do the work. If you're interested in leaning in, reach out to Cami through her contact inside the show notes. Reach out to me, join Spark the Stage, go to leahharris.com/masterclass and take the free masterclass, or go to Cami's website and take her free workshops that she said that she hosts monthly. You can get started. You can get started today. You don't have to be scared of yourself. Let me pause. Let me take the tempo down. I'm wrapping up. I'm rapping, but I need to take this tempo down, and I need you to hear this clearly. You don't have to be scared of yourself. I realize, and it's hitting me, I guess I'm channeling right now, that this entire episode was about you getting into yourself so that you could reach others. And sometimes the stage fright, actually, all the time, the stage fright really comes from the judgments we put on ourselves and the judgments we put on the things that nobody else can see or know about besides us. And so the more we rifle around in ourselves to try to find our purpose, and the more we dig around and unroot limiting the beliefs, the more we have to confront those things, those shadowy places that scare us. But let me just tell you, there's nothing inside of you that can hurt you. Even the things that have hurt in the past, even the deep-seated trauma, drama, resentment, blame, pain, it's already done the pain. It's already done the hurt. It's already done the damage. Your job is to let it go. And yes, will looking at it maybe have you reconfront something that has hurt you in the past? Yes. But guess where you are living right now? In the present. Whatever has hurt you in the past is in the past. Whatever experience you had in the past is in the past. And when you look at it, realize that you are currently in the very safe, very cozy, very comfortable present. And that thing just needs to be released. Yes, you have to pick it up. Yes, you have to be the one to boot it out and wipe up the mess it left behind. But it can no longer hurt you. And the sooner and the better you are able to confront those things, the better speaker you'll be, the better business owner you'll be, the better mother you'll be, the better father you'll be, the better parent, spouse, friend, sister, brother. I know that the work that Cami calls you to do, the work that I call you to do, to reach your full potential, to love you into the highest version of yourself, is not easy work. If it were, everybody would do it and everybody would be, out there shining on a stage. But they're not. It's hard, but it's worth it. Not just to become a speaker, not just to make the money, which will happen, but to be happier, to be joyful, to find that purpose, to find the reason why you get up every morning, and to step into that with pure confidence, knowing that you are unshakable and unbreakable. So with that, I leave you in this episode with lots to think about and hopefully a little bit of encouragement to do the things. My name is Alea Harris. This is the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast, Season 5. And now and always, I wish you love, light, and abundance. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. Vibing with what you hear? Leave a 5-star review to spread the love and be sure to click subscribe. We wish you love, light, and abundance. See you next time.